Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning on this Tuesday, October the 22nd. We can expect sunny skies today, reaching a high of about 80 degrees. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after we take this look at news. An Aliquippa resident pled guilty in federal court to drug trafficking charges. Kawana Stefan Lowe, age 27, pled guilty before United States District Judge William Stickman, the one count of conspiracy to distribute and possess 5 kilograms or more of cocaine and 400 grams or more of fentanyl. Lowe's sentencing is scheduled for March 12th of 2025. The Pennsylvania State Police and Commonwealth University announced an agreement that allows Pennsylvania State Police troopers to receive college credits for their successful completion of cadet basic training at the Pennsylvania State Police Academy. Upon successful completion of their training, Commonwealth University will grant academic credit towards an associate or Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. At the direction of Governor Shapiro, the state police suspended their educational requirement of 60 college credits in August of 2023. The Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission announced that Lillian Gabreski has been named their new Director of Transportation. She will join the organization's leadership team, leading a department of 13 staff members and overseeing transportation initiatives on behalf of the 10-county region. McDonald's says it agreed to host former President Donald Trump at a Pennsylvania store over the weekend, but that they are not endorsing a candidate in the U.S. presidential race. Trump staffed the fry station at a McDonald's in suburban Philadelphia Sunday before answering questions through the drive-thru window. In a message to employees obtained Monday by the Associated Press, McDonald's said they agreed to a franchisee's request to host the event because it opens its doors to everyone. The Chicago burger giant said franchisees have also invited Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, to their restaurants. Schools in the Keystone State are recognizing October's National Farm to School Month by serving local produce in their meals. Here's more from Danielle Smith.
The Department of Agriculture is offering $700 million in new funding for the Local Foods for Schools and Local Foods for Child Care programs across the state and beyond. Jenny Lester-Moffitt with the USDA says these programs not only ensure students receive nutritious meals, but also create direct market opportunities for local farmers.
Farmers that are farming in the region, for them to be able to sell direct to schools, it not just provides healthy food for the kids, but it also provides much needed market for producers as well.
She says there's also a financial advantage for farmers. Direct sales provide farmers with more revenue and keep those food dollars within local communities. In contrast, when they sell their products to major retail supply chains, they typically receive only about 14 cents for every $2.
In a stretch of what was once Pennsylvania's steel country, Democrats and Republicans are looking to test their strength with Latino voters. Pennsylvania is arguably the hardest fought of the battleground states and happens to be one of the fastest growing Hispanic communities in the country. It is what they call the 222 corridor, after the highway that connects small cities and towns west and north of Philly. It's a place where Democratic nominee Kamala Harris can prove that her party still commands a large share of the demographic support, and where Trump's campaign has been working to gain ground. And law officers have arrested a teenager in connection with the deaths of 5 people found fatally shot inside a home southeast of Seattle. Authorities say several 911 callers reported the shooting around 5 a.m. Monday in Fall City, Washington. The King County Sheriff's Office says deputies arrived at the home and immediately took a teenager into custody. A sheriff's spokesperson says deputies also found the bodies of 5 people and that the shooting appeared to involve members of a family. The official says another teen was found injured and taken to a Seattle hospital. A neighbor told media outlet King TV that a couple and their 5 children lived in the home.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
A beautiful sunny day in store for us. We'll see a high near 79. Mostly clear tonight. Will drop down to a very mild low of 52. Sunny tomorrow with a chance of afternoon showers. It's going to be breezy and some areas could see wind gusts over 20 miles per hour. Look for a high near 75 and an overnight low of 42. More sunshine on Thursday. We'll see a high of 59 and a low of 38. And sunny on Friday with a chance of showers. We'll reach a high of 67 and a low of 49. I'm Lisa Marie with your Beaver County weather.
On It's Tuesday, October the 22nd at 10 minutes past 10. We've got a temperature of 58 degrees with sunny skies in Beaver County. That's news. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM and AM 1230 WBVP, also streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Teleforum is on the air on Beaver County Radio, 99.3 FM and 1230 WBVP. The show is presented by East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Saves. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddie Crow.
It is Teleforum. This is going to be a weird interview. This is going to be a strange interview. Please welcome to the program Bryan Hayden. He is the PA Cyber CEO. And the reason this is going to be a weird interview, and for full disclosure, I have a history with PA Cyber. I don't, but I've got family members. My daughter went to Lincoln Park. So I'm trying to think of something edgy to ask you. I can't come up with anything. What's the number one question you get asked about quote-unquote cyber school?
Well, good morning, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
I just threw it right at you, didn't I?
Yes, I did. So I didn't know I was going to be doing the questions and the answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think one of the biggest misperceptions is that we are not a public school. We are often referred to, even by legislators and in the media, as a private school, that we're a private school taking public money. And that's simply not true. We're a public school. We're chartered by the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
That's where the word comes from.
Right. Yep, exactly. Yeah. We are evaluated each year and assessed by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. All of our students have to complete the same coursework, show the same proficiencies, reach the same level of attainment that any public school student does in Beaver or Central Valley or Beaver Falls or any other place in Beaver County or in Pennsylvania. And our students are tested. PSSAs and Keystones, right? Yeah. The same. We do those in the spring. For PA Cyber, that's a very different experience than a traditional school. We have about 32 sites across Pennsylvania, ballrooms, hotels, convention centers, and our students have to come to us to be tested over a few days. So, at the same time, we have to send hundreds of staff out, for a week to do so. And they have to meet the same graduation requirements. So in all respects, they are public school students.
Why don't people know that? You mentioned legislators, and I've talked to legislators about this, and I've had to tell, it's not a private school. It's a public school with public school rules.
Well, I think there's a cynical answer that there are people who want to portray us as somehow organizations that aren't accountable, that aren't transparent, but yet we're taking millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars to educate kids. So when they refer to us as a private school, it appears that there's something that's not right about that. I always like to remind people that our families are taxpayers too. So all of the kids that come to our school, their parents are taxpayers, and they are paying school taxes the way all of us do, and should have be the beneficiary of at least some of that money to educate their kid, even if they're not getting on the yellow school bus every morning to go down the street to their school.
Bryan Hayden is my guest. He is the CEO of PA Cyber. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. Is it an issue of we've given up on educating ourselves? Because that's a basic fundamental thing, that PA Cyber is part of the Pennsylvania school system.
I don't think I'd go that far. I think that, education has become a lot more complicated than it was, in the 70s and 80s when I went to school. A lot more options. I think families are more critical, and I mean that in like the purest form of being critical of reviewing or assessing,
being aware of what's going on,
of their own kids' education, and and I think the pandemic really exacerbated that. I know that in the years after the pandemic in Pennsylvania, homeschooling enrollment grew, cyber school enrollment grew, brick and mortar charter enrollment grew, private and parochial school enrollment grew. The only enrollment that didn't grow were the traditional public schools. And I think that really impacted a lot of families in looking at how their kids were being educated and saying, maybe for my kid, something is different. Mm-hmm. And I'm very clear about that. Like, cyber school is not for every student. It is not.
Who's it not for?
Well, I think it's easier to say who it's for,
okay.
Right? So I think it's for kids that, have a certain level of discipline on their own. I think it's for kids that are more focused on the classroom experience than they are maybe the social parts of school. Mm-hmm. I think it's for students that somehow know, even at a young age, that walking into a traditional classroom every day isn't the best way for them to learn.
Right.
And we've had students say that. I mean, students that are very high functioning, very bright, moving on to the best colleges in the country, that just simply say, I didn't like being in the classroom. So it was good for them. It is not a place just to hide from school.
And for some people, that is the perception.
It's perception, right. And it's not the case. I mean, our kids still have to come to school every day. Mm-hmm. They still have to do their homework, take tests, be present, be engaged in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So we don't just let them stay in bed all day and not come to school. I mean, that's another fallacy. We're very purposeful about students that have attendance problems or aren't making satisfactory academic progress, that we intervene with them. We talk to their families. We talk to the kids. We make extraordinary efforts to get them back on track, if that's what they choose to do.
I want to play devil's advocate,
okay.
And you correct me, and I know I'm incorrect when I do this. All my kid does is lay at home and stare at the laptop computer. They need social interaction too.
Well, they do need social interaction too. I answer that to, three ways. One is, for many of the people of this generation, so much of their social interaction is on a screen. Even when they're around other people. We can argue if that's good or bad, but it's the fact, right? Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think there's this misperception that every kid that goes into a brick and mortar classroom is having a positive social interaction. And we all know that's not true. It wasn't true in 1983 when I graduated. It's not true today.
It wasn't true the year before when I graduated.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And I high school or middle school, whatever, is not a Disney movie, right? Where everybody's happy and they jump up on the cafeteria tables and sing and dance and they're all happy to be there together. That's not the reality of school. So, when administrators or people say, well, they're not getting a positive, social interaction. Well, I would argue that they're not necessarily getting one by being in a school. The third part of that is that we offer, thousands of opportunities for our kids to interact. That's
the regional process or the regional program.
Right. We have 9 regional offices all over Pennsylvania, plus our headquarters in Midland, where we have, art programming, we have STEM programming, we have school dances, we've got, wellness programs. We do a teen trivia contest there. We also have, I think we're up to 70 or 80 clubs. Now, they meet typically online. Everything from your typical newspaper and student council to, a podcast club. We have a Bible club. We've got, photography club and all of those different types of things where students interact with each other. And then we have hundreds of field trips every year. Everything from zoo days, which we do at the beginning of school. I think we had 1,200 people at the Pittsburgh Zoo there, to a potato chip factory tour, to, a 2-day Battle of Gettysburg experience. So our students, if they choose to, can do that. But so many of our kids also have their own socialization outside of school. They play soccer or, are involved in other athletics. They're in scouts. They're in their youth group. They're in 4-H clubs. They work. They do engage with the community. I've kidded, like, they are not sitting in a corner sucking their thumbs watching a screen all day. That is not our kids. And it's almost like an insult when people portray them as anything less than a typical Pennsylvania public school student.
Is there a problem with that? my daughter, it was exactly what you described. Yeah. She was proud that it was a quote unquote, it's a cool school that does normal stuff.
Right.
Am I oversimplifying?
No, I think that's I like to say that. We might, I'll ask my marketing team here to make a note of that. It's a school.
Okay.
But it is. And again, for the students who choose this option, or the families that choose this option, it works very well. At the same time, we have kids that come here because they think it's better than where they are right now. Mm-hmm. In a couple weeks, they realize, maybe it's not so bad. And we really encourage those kids to go back to their traditional school because we want them to be in the best learning environment. If it's PA Cyber, that's wonderful. If it's a Catholic school, that's wonderful. If it's homeschool, that's wonderful. Our interest is in the kids' education, not an enrollment number that we might gain or lose on.
Is it more difficult to describe a typical PA Cyber student than it would be to describe a typical brick and mortar?
I don't think so, because I think they're all the same. When we have these activities or an event in the regional offices or a field trip or whatever, I always tell people, I'm like, I challenge you to look at our 20 high schoolers and say they look, act, dress, talk, appear any different than 20 high schoolers from the school that your kids go to, because they are just kids. That's what I always say. They're just kids. They're just learning in a different way.
Are the parents different with a cyber school than a brick and mortar?
That's a bit of a challenging question, because they're different in the sense that they have chosen to do something non-traditional.
They've become engaged to the point of outside the norm.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
But again, I would say that's no different than the kids that go to St. Peter and Paul or Swickley Academy or, anything like any other alternative school like that. But they have made a decision that the school that they live in is not great for their kids. And they've gone out and essentially shopped around and looked for a better alternative for their kid. I've said to our parents, that I think we have a higher responsibility to our families than a traditional school, because we're a school of choice. And especially a cyber school, they can disenroll like that and go someplace different.
Right.
You can't just move your home to another school district. You can't just enroll your kid in a private school and pay $11,000 or $32,000 a year, if that's what the tuition is. So I think we really have a higher responsibility to our families to do what they perceive and we perceive as in the best interest of their child, to keep them.
PA Cyber CEO Bryan Hayden is with me on Teleforum. It's 22 minutes after 10. How often do the parents show initial interest in PA Cyber, and how often do the kids show initial interest and get the parents involved?
You mean, how do they choose PA Cyber?
Who shows an interest in cyber school first, the parent or the kid?
So, that's interesting. Oftentimes we hear that it's the kid that will come home from school and say, I don't want to go to school anymore, and then they look for options. Our biggest referrals are from family and friends. So a lot of times it'll be a kid that, I use the soccer field example, right? That, you got two kids on a soccer field and they're talking about school, and one says, I don't like my school, and the other one goes, well, I'm a PA Cyber, and then that conversation goes to the parents. But it's also parents that, like, maybe for their own assessment of the school, don't think it's the right place for their kid. Might be safety issues, might be the parents' perception of a lack of quality in that school, those types of things. And they start looking around and say, hey, would you think about this? It does not work, though, if the kid doesn't want to be here. So whoever starts that conversation, there has to be a general agreement that this is the best option, because a kid that doesn't want to be in cyber school isn't going to perform any better than a kid that doesn't want to be in a traditional school.
It is Teleforum. Curtis is coming in with news. Can you stay? I've got a lot more questions. All right.
We're good. Thank
Bryan Hayden is my guest, PA Cyber CEO on Beaver County Radio.
They don't call her confiscation Kamala for nothing. Don't take it from us.
And I support a mandatory buyback program.
A mandatory buyback program? That means the government forcing you to turn in your firearms. To what lengths would Kamala go? Well, she doesn't even support the individual right to own a firearm.
I'm prepared to take executive action and put in place a ban on the importation of assault weapons into our country.
We get it. Sometimes it's tough to understand what she's talking about. But on the Second Amendment and your rights, Confiscation Kamala has been crystal clear. Her gun control agenda comes straight from that petri dish of bad ideas that is California. She can claim to be a gun owner all she wants, but we all know she's the same anti-gun California radical she's always been. Don't be left defenseless. Defeat Confiscation Kamala. Vote Trump like your life depends on it, because it does. NRA Political Victory Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. NRAPEF.org.
Tune in to Beaver County Radio after the Friday night football game for the 35th anniversary season of Falcone's Moon Township Ford Wrap-Up Show. Beaver County Radio's Bruce Fry and Ryan Garazunas will have the scores, standings, and any news from the games. They will also take your phone calls so you can talk about your favorite team. The Falcone's Moon Township Ford Wrap-Up Show is being brought to you by Carver Construction, the St. Barnabas Health System, Beaver County Career and Technology Center, Falcone's Moon Township Ford, the YMCA, the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, Patriot Home Care, Keystone Wellness Program, Fry Transportation Group, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, the Community College of Beaver County, Friendly Federal Credit Union, Fat Boy Cigars, Geneva College, and Beaver County Radio.
.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com, invite you to tune in to Sounds of Faith. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 for a mix of the best sacred music of all time. Sounds of Faith is brought to you by Crawford Tire in Beaver, the William Murphy Funeral Home, City Rescue Mission, MRS Physical Therapy, Circle of Friends, J&J Spratt Funeral Home, and Rome Monument and Inspirational Gifts. Sounds of Faith, uplifting, relaxing, and inspiring radio. Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Rob Matsey. It's been my honor to represent you in Harrisburg. Now, I know the last few years haven't been easy. Folks are working too hard for too little, and politicians just point fingers instead of solving problems. I stay focused on helping you, investing millions here to create good jobs and raise wages, leading the fight against big corporations to eliminate junk fees and fighting tax increases. And I'm looking after those who looked after us, lowering the cost of prescriptions and investigating mistreatment in nursing homes. I'm proud to be endorsed by organized labor, police and firefighters, Governor Shapiro, and folks from both parties. I've avoided the drama in Harrisburg and stayed focused on delivering for Beaver County. I'm Rob Matsey, and I'd be humbled to continue working for you.
Paid for by people from Matsey.
There's a reason why the words True Value are in the name. True Value in any purchase or store visit has a lot more to do with your overall satisfaction and experience than just price alone. That's exactly what you'll find at the Rochester True Value Hardware Store inside the East Rochester Shop and Save. Expert advice combined with great selection and favorable pricing. It's the perfect time to get your fall project started today by heading to the Rochester True Value Hardware Store inside the East Rochester Shop and Save.
The best of Beaver County is easy to discover. It's right here on your radio. Tune in Beaver County Radio or watch the best of Beaver County live on Facebook or YouTube video this and every Thursday from 11 to 11:30. The program is made possible by St. Barnabas. For over 3 years now, the show has been dedicated to shining light on the great things going on right here in your neighborhood and the people that are making it happen. This Thursday, enjoy conversation and insight from an intriguing lineup of guests who are creating excitement and having an impact right here in Beaver County. Your friends and neighbors at St. Barnabas are pleased to support the best of Beaver County. The radio broadcast will also be replayed each week from 11:30 to noon on Sundays on Beaver County Radio. Archived Best of Beaver County videos can be viewed on the WBVP WMBA Facebook page. It's your chance to encounter the best of Beaver County with host Mike Romai this Thursday starting at 11. For more information, visit BeaverCountyRadio.com.
If you own a company or a small business, you might have considered advertising on radio. It's smart because radio is still the most far-reaching media outlet today. WBVP and WMBA can get you results. Get more information at beavercountyradio.com.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning on this Tuesday, October the 22nd. We can expect sunny skies today, reaching a high of about 80 degrees. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after we take this look at news. Railroad Norfolk Southern's streamlined operations delivered strong earnings last quarter, even excluding boosts from insurance payouts related to the disastrous derailment in East Palestine and the sale of 2 rail lines. The Atlanta-based railroad recorded a $287 million gain on the sale of rail lines in Virginia and North Carolina, and for the second quarter in a row, it collected more insurance payments than it paid out for last year's derailment near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. Norfolk Southern earned over $1 billion, or $4.85 per share in the quarter, according to the company. The Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission announced that Lillian Gabreski has been named their new Director of Transportation. She will join the organization's leadership team, leading a department of 13 staff members and overseeing transportation initiatives on behalf of the 10-county region. Schools in the Keystone State are recognizing October's National Farm to School Month by serving local produce in their meals. Here's more from Danielle Smith.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture is offering $700 million in new funding for the Local Foods for Schools and Local Foods for Child Care programs across the state and beyond. Jenny Lester-Moffitt with the USDA says these programs not only ensure students receive nutritious meals, but also create direct market opportunities for local farmers.
Farmers that are farming in the region, for them to be able to sell direct to schools, it not just provides healthy food for the kids, but it also provides much needed market for producers as well.
She says there's also a financial advantage for farmers. Direct sales provide farmers with more revenue and keep those food dollars within local communities. In contrast, when they sell their products to major retail supply chains, they typically receive only about 14 cents for every $2.
Department of Human Services Secretary Dr. Val Arkush announced increases to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program income and benefit limits in Pennsylvania, following a yearly adjustment from the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. Secretary Arkush also announced that the replacement of stolen SNAP benefits, which DHS began offering in 2023, has been extended to benefits stolen through December 20th of 2024. In a stretch of what was once Pennsylvania's steel country, Democrats and Republicans are looking to test their strength with Latino voters. Pennsylvania is arguably the hardest fought of the battleground states and happens to have one of the fastest growing Hispanic communities in the country. It is what they call the 222 corridor, after the highway that connects small cities and towns west and north of Philadelphia. It's a place where Democratic nominee Kamala Harris can prove that her party still commands a large share of the demographic support, and where Trump's campaign has been working to gain ground. And an affordability shift is taking root in the U.S. auto industry. The trend is being led by people who feel they can no longer afford a new vehicle that would cost them roughly today's average selling price of more than $47,000, a jump of more than 20% from the pre-pandemic average. Yet there are other buyers who could manage the financial burden but have decided it just isn't worth the cost. The trend is forcing automakers to reassess their sales and production strategies. If the trend towards lower-priced vehicles proves a lasting one, more generous discounts could lead to lower average auto prices and slowing industry profits.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
A beautiful sunny day in store for us. We'll see a high near 79. Mostly clear tonight. Will drop down to a very mild low of 52. Sunny tomorrow with a chance of afternoon showers. It's going to be breezy, and some areas could see wind gusts over 20 miles per hour. Look for a high near 75 and an overnight low of 42. More sunshine on Thursday. We'll see a high of 59 and a low of 38. And sunny on Friday with a chance of showers. We'll reach a high of 67 and a low of 49. I'm Lisa Marie with your Beaver County weather.
On this Tuesday, October the 22nd, at 35 minutes past 10, we've got a temperature of 58 degrees with sunny skies in Beaver County. That's news. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM and AM 1230 WBVP, also streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Now, it's time to talk on Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and beavercountyradio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddie Crow.
It is Teleforum. Having a conversation, wonderful conversation. I'm providing very little, but Bryan's doing great. Bryan Hayden is the CEO of PA Cyber. We're talking about cyber schools and charter schools and perceptions and misperceptions and all of that business. And earlier we were talking about it's not just sitting in front of a laptop at home. How much of it is like traditional school, what people think of as traditional school, and how much of it is the cyber part of PA Cyber?
Well, one of the things I think that's foundational about the way PA Cyber and other Pennsylvania Cyber Charter Schools work we are comprehensive schools, right? We're not just math on a screen or science on a screen. And so, in addition to what we provide in the classroom, which of course is the core of what we do, and we're very good at it. Our teachers have been doing this for over 2 decades now, right? This is what they've developed their expertise in. But we provide nearly everything else a traditional school does. I always say, except for busing, the cafeteria, and interscholastic sports. But everything else that is part of the school experience, we either have to or choose to provide. So, we have the counselors, we have the advisors, we have school nurses.
You have tutors.
Tutors, oh yes, lots of tutors. We've got, like I said, we have to do the statewide testing and meet all the graduation requirements. But, I talked about all the clubs and the student assistance program and, everything else we do to give the kids the full school experience. And so for these families that choose to come here and their students, this is their school. It's not just, like I said, a computer screen.
Right.
And we provide every kid with a laptop and, PE kits. We have to have PE.
What is in a PE? As a person that grew up loathing PE, what is in a PE kit?
So it depends on the age of the kid. For some of the older kids, believe it or not, we send the golf club out and they do some golfing. And other than that, it's running around after a ball or doing things like that. We actually have a whole staff of PE teachers that have to monitor kids. We send them a device. It's not an expensive Apple.
You get a Fitbit.
Yeah, but not the Fitbit version. But where the kids are supposed to track their activity to spend time outside or doing something like that. So we have to provide all of that to our students. So they really do get a comprehensive education. In terms of how we perceive how they interact and engage with each other, it is like I talked a little bit about, these regional offices. So, one of the criticisms that we will get occasionally is like, well, what do you do with all the money? You don't have buildings. I'm like, well, that's not true.
No, we have drive through Midland.
Right. We have 300 people that live. We have 300 people that work in Midland.
Yeah.
Some that probably feel like they live there, but work in Midland in 6 buildings. We have a big warehouse because we have to ship laptops and
the logistics side
of it, right? Yeah,
okay.
Textbooks and materials and science equipment and so forth to 11,000 kids across the Commonwealth. But we also have these 9 regional offices, and our goal is that every student's about an hour's drive from them, and that's not perfect, but that's our goal, an hour and a half. But they're on the south side, Pittsburgh, Warrendale, Greensburg, Erie, State College, Harrisburg, Wilkes-Barre, Allentown, and Philadelphia.
So you start here and just work north and east.
Right, exactly. And these are spaces that we have part of it's for recruitment, enrollment, and orientation. One of the things that's a bit unique to PA Cyber is every new family, every new student that comes here has to have an in-person interview. We don't enroll people just through the...
Why is that unusual?
Well,
as an educator, wouldn't you expect people to want to have a meeting before they choose their child's education?
Right, but they could do that online, but we think it's important that they come in person. So everybody has some sort of of an orientation or an interview. We require them to come in person because we think it's important for a couple of reasons. One is I think it shows the level of commitment by the family, right, that they're going to drive somewhere, If I often talk to families in Midland, I'm like, oh, where are you from? I'm from Newcastle, or, I'm from, West Middlesex or something like that. Or they also might be from Beaver, right? They come to these offices. We like for the students to come so that we actually get to meet the student. We don't require the student to come, but it's typical that the student comes. But the other thing is, I think it's a more robust way to talk about what the school is, because we spend a lot of time explaining to the family and to the student what it's like to be a cyber student, that it's not just laying around in bed or playing video games or texting or whatever they would rather do, that we have expectations, there are standards, there are rules that they have to follow. We show them the different ways that we teach. We have both a virtual classroom, which is a live instruction. It's what you and I remember, it only online. So at 10 o'clock, you're in 8th grade science, and there's a teacher and 24 students, and they're teaching away, and students hopefully are answering questions and participating. We also have what we call a blended classroom, which is a mix of primarily self-paced, but then there's an opportunity for them to meet in the classroom a couple times a week. So we want them to understand the differences of those, right, as they plan their schedule. We want them to understand the technology. It's
who struggles with the technology more, the kids or the mom and dad?
Mom, dad, and a lot of grandparents.
A lot of grandparents.
Okay. If you look statistically, how many grandparents are raising kids in this country, it's really significant. And one of the requirements that we have is there's an adult at home. Now that adult might be the 20-year-old sibling, it might be mom or dad, it might be grandma or grandpa. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable with that. But we have a big tech team in Midland, as well as a couple of other offices that are there to help families. They call an 800 number. They are going to get a PA Cyber employee that does nothing all day that help PA Cyber families. We don't outsource that to some call center somewhere.
It's not going to be somebody with a weird accent claiming to be Dave.
No, unless it's a Yinzer accent, maybe that's
not weird. That's accepted.
Yeah. So, we want to make sure that they have an understanding of that also, so that when they open their computer for their first day of school, and of course we enroll kids all year, right? I mean, like today there are enrollment appointments, that they're ready to go, and that the frustration level is relatively small, and that the kids have a really good first day of school, because that's important to them. We also, subsequent to enrollment, do an orientation, and we'll do either that in person or virtually, how they do that. But that's another opportunity that we take to really introduce the families and the students to how school works. By that point, they'll have their own schedule set, so it's much more personalized to what they want to do. How our electronic classroom works, how people find information on clubs or activities, how they can access tutoring, right? Because we have tutoring both by teachers who have tutoring hours, as well as a tutoring service that they can actually access pretty much anytime they want to. If they want a Saturday morning tutoring session, they can sign up for that. So we want to make sure they have as much understanding as possible. Although I often joke, it's like when you get a rental car, right? And they want to explain to you where everything is, but you don't want to listen because you just want to get in your rental car and go, until the first time you have to fill the gas tank up, and then you can't figure out.
You park it on the wrong side of the pump, right, and people are honking.
Right, or somewhere there's a button inside that you got to push, and so we get a lot of that. Like, we explain everything, but then 2 weeks later, we're still there to help families and students. But we also want them to know that their students can participate and engage with other kids in so many different ways. Like I said, these regional offices, so they serve that role for, appointments and orientation. but we want kids to get to know each other. We always do these, we call them kickoff events at the beginning of the year. Essentially, it's open house where we get our principals to come and meet students and families. And, we met so many families this year that like their kids met 2 years ago at a kickoff event, and now they're best friends. And not just best friends online and not just best friends in school, but, the families do what families do. They'll go bowling. They'll go out for pizza. Mm-hmm. They'll have, sleepovers or whatever and get ice cream. And so, it's an opportunity for them to create those real relationships that kids have, and they have because they're around each other every day.
How did the socialization process change after COVID? Because what you do is already a different socialization process that had to make things upside down.
So it was really interesting. We had sort of always thought of like what we do online and what we do in person, and almost like two sort of separate but connected things. One of the things we learned during COVID, because our tagline is "the learning never stops," and I always say that starts with me and goes all the way down. That. There were families that couldn't engage in the in-person because transportation or time frames.
Can't leave the house.
Right. Or, maybe they only had one car and that one goes to work, school schedules, work schedules, things like that. So we really ramped up how we did some of these things virtually, including sending things like art supplies into the home and then having them meet online to do the activity and show it. We did other bingo like online, things like that where the kids could get together. And we found out that opened up a whole new segment of our families to these extracurricular activities that we hadn't really thought about in that way. And so as we came out of the pandemic, and of course we went back to the in-person, we've kept a lot of those other activities that we hadn't necessarily done before the pandemic virtually now, so that there's really other options for families and students to engage. And we've got some really serious bingo games going on out there. My image of bingo is the old ladies at the church bingos.
Yeah, with the little Cupid dolls.
Yeah, the Cupid dolls and the the Pepsi and them yelling at the caller for going too fast or too slow. Yeah. So I'm a little, but ours are a little calmer than that. But
How much did that make the parents feel better? Even if they had to be engaged because they couldn't leave the house and became engaged in those activities, how much more faith did you see in the parents after that because they got a real world toe in the pool experience?
So every opportunity that we have to talk to families is good for everybody, both for us and them. And one of the coolest things is when we have these big in-person events like the Meet the Principals or kickoff events. We're getting ready to do National Honor Society inductions in Pittsburgh, Philly, and Harrisburg. We have two big in-person graduations, one at Robert Morris and one at Kutztown University in the eastern part of the state, is kids and family members to finally get to meet that teacher.
Yeah.
To finally get to meet their principal. I always like to tell this story. This is when I first got here. I was at some event, and there was a little kid, probably second or third grade, and the mother, I always go around and try to introduce myself to all the families, and the mother said to the little girl, "That's the CEO," and the girl says, "Is that the principal?" And she goes, "No, it's the CEO." He goes, "It's not the principal," and she goes, "No, he's like above the principal," and the little girl goes, "But it's not the principal."
Yeah.
And she said no, and the girl just turned around and walked away because to her the most important person in the school was the principal.
Yeah.
So I learned a very, very valuable lesson of where I fell in the pecking order.
Absolutely.
But it's so cool that they'll say, I've been talking to you for 2 years, or I've been talking to you for 5 years, or this is the third kid I've put through the middle school, and now I get to meet the principal, and you can just see the excitement and the how meaningful that is
the emotional,
to put the face and the name together.
Because and you know this, if you deal with someone daily, doesn't matter if they're in person or on a computer screen, you make a connection, and to go from the artificial connection of a screen to actually see. That's beautiful. Bryan Hayden is the PA Cyber CEO. He's my guest. What would you do for a living if you weren't doing this?
So that's interesting. So I actually spent the first 20 years of my career working for elected officials. I'm not an educator by background.
Which is worse, politics or a helicopter mom?
It depends what day of the week.
It depends on the tone, doesn't it?
Right. So I worked for a member of Congress. I worked for the Board of County Commissioners. I worked for state legislator. I worked for a state agency for a little while. Mm-hmm. Then I transitioned to the Community College of Beaver County, believe it or not, administration. And about 7 years ago, found myself here. I've had like two separate careers, I like to say, the first 20 years and then the second 20 or so. But it's interesting. I love history. And so maybe, we talked about this yesterday, actually, a history professor. Although I'm a voracious reader. I love libraries. I love bookstores. I mean, I was very fortunate to grow up in a family that we were taught that reading was
books.
Was fun. And because also when I'm so old that there were no electronic devices when we were in the car or something, you read.
Wait a minute. You didn't at least have the Mattel football?
Not even that.
They didn't even let you get. Those weren't even players. They were just little dots.
My parents were. We had one TV in the house actually, and no, my parents didn't believe in TVs in bedrooms. I was talking outside. I listened to AM radio, old KDK with Roy Fox and John Cigna and those.
Gosh.
Yeah, as a kid growing up. But anyways, so I keep saying I think for whenever I'm at the end of this full time, I'm going to go work in a Barnes and Noble or something and share books with people. So.
Are kids more or less interested in the world around them? Or are they being inundated with it, whether they like it or not? You mentioned history.
I actually think they're far more interested, and they certainly know more about the world. There are pluses and negatives, I think, to social media and to things like that. But I think one of the real pluses is their ability to literally travel the world from their home. They can make friends. Right? Yeah, they can make friends from anywhere, and they do. They can look at music or TV shows or anything from around the world. I mean, look at the Korean pop and anime and things like that. They can travel virtually to the Grand Canyon or to Petra in Jordan and in ways that we couldn't. And I think they are far more conscious of the world. I think they are far more tolerant of the world, generally. I do believe that.
Tolerant of views that 50 years ago were less tolerant.
Right. I do believe that for kids.
How much does that give you hope?
A lot.
Because it's difficult to have hope if you pay attention to politics and TV right now.
Yeah. I have this running joke that give me a room full of teenagers over 2 adults any day, because eventually I'll get the teenagers to do something.
Where do you fall with dogs and cats? Because I just assume be dogs and cats as people.
So I grew up with dogs.
Okay, what kind?
We had poodles and a Dalmatian and different.
Are Dalmatians as dumb as people said? They didn't strike me as dumb.
So I was they had the Dalmatian before they had me. So I'm not sure if, I don't really remember the Dalmatian, just pictures. I know her name was Sally. But we always had dogs. We had a couple of, rescue dogs and that, but we were not a cat family. So.
Well, you don't own dogs.
Yeah.
Or you own dogs and dogs want to be your buddy. Cats, you are their servant.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say I do believe the PA cyber families are more cat families, because we often have students that will hold their cat up and talk about their cats. But I think another plus of being at home, you've got your best friend.
Your support.
Yeah, right there all the time, yeah.
Bryan Hayden, PA Cyber CEO, is my guest on Teleforum. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't? Once we got to the Dalmatian, I figured there's got to be something I missed.
Well, I just wanted to mention we're in our 24th year of teaching.
25th anniversary.
25th, and is next year. We're one of the oldest cyber charter schools, not only in Pennsylvania, but in the country, and we're really proud of that. We had big plans for our 20th anniversary, except that happened to fall in 2020, so those plans got smaller. but hopefully 2025 will be a little bit better. But I think what that brings with it is, as I mentioned before, we've got remarkable expertise in our classroom in the ways we support our students. Our curriculum team is the best in the nation. Their understanding of how curriculum works. Our teachers have been doing this, most of them for their entire career.
Yes.
They know how to engage. They know how to plan. They know how to work with students. Our technology team, everybody that comes in contact with a PA Cyber student, from the first person who takes a phone call to when they walk off the stage with a diploma, is committed to the way that cyber schools work best. And you don't learn that in a day, in a year. I still say I'm a baby at this after 7 years, but the people who have been there and have committed their careers to this are remarkable educators.
How will people get in touch with you? Somebody's listening, say, that sounds like an interesting concept.
So our website is www.pacyber.org.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way.
That's the starting point.
That's the starting point. Our phone number is 724-888. I'm trying to. Oh, this is embarrassing.
Well, you don't know it's not. You don't call them. They call you.
So, right. I think it's 1-800-PA-CYBER. Is that it? 1-800-PA-CYBER. We're double checking.
Mr. Hayden, you'll come back again?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. With the phone number and everything?
Yeah.
Nobody calls their own number. I get that.
They're double checking.
Double checking the phone number. PACyber.org.
Yeah, is the best way.
All right.
And social media, yes. We're on Instagram, Facebook.
You're on all the things the cool kids are on.
Right, yes, right.
Bryan Hayden's been my guest on Teleforum. He will be back.
Thank you.